All right, so let's get started. So basically, if you don't know what social media is, that's the definition I pulled from Wikipedia. It's basically just using web or mobile to communicate. And most people used to just think, oh, I go to my laptop or my computer and get on Facebook and connect with people. Now it's almost more people not doing that. It's more people on their handhelds, their mobile devices, their smartphones, going to Starbucks and going, I'm at Starbucks, tweet. Oh, big deal. But that's actually, it is a big deal because people are connecting at so many different new levels. I would meet up with somebody, like a friend, or I'd go to an event on the weekend, and he said, oh, how was Starbucks on Wednesday? I'm like, what? And it's like, oh yeah, I tweeted when I was there. So you can put yourself out there a lot more. And a lot of the time, these things kind of seem silly, like you're tweeting that you're at Starbucks, or you send you put on your LinkedIn update that what you had for lunch. But that's actually that's how human connection happens. People don't want to talk about business all the time. Think about your last job, or if you were in school before. It wasn't always about studying, right? A lot of the time it was about connecting with the people that were your peers, people of a like mind. So if you're in an accounting department and you guys all thinking about numbers all the time, you're going to go out to lunch, and yeah, that's a common bond, but you're likely not going to discuss accounting. And if you do, remind me not to come. Please. Just joking. But you're going to talk about just fun stuff. Maybe talk about what's going on this weekend, going to a cottage, or kids have their first day at kindergarten. That was the first thing I said to you. I didn't tell you about what business I was in and things like that. Nobody cares. People care about what's important to you at a human connection level. And you need to remember that. I think a lot of people shy away from that, especially when they are looking for work. And as an entrepreneur, that's one of the biggest things I've learned is that you can actually put yourself out there, your personal self out there, a little bit more than people are willing to. And a lot of the time we wear our corporate hats and forget to actually share who we are. But I know that when I've got jobs in the past, or when I've helped hire, we always looked at the character of the person. We looked at the resume as well. I mean, if they knew nothing about what we were hiring, obviously. But at the end of the meeting, we would say, okay, yeah, they know some of what we've got here. They'd have to go on a couple training courses to learn these other skills, but could I work with this person? Are they gonna, if 5 o'clock comes and we're struggling with a problem, are they gonna leave, or are they gonna stick around to help us out and make sure that the problem's solved before they go? Am I gonna come to work every day and this person's gonna be smiling, ask me to go for a coffee, or are they gonna be grouchy? That's really the stuff we wanna know, right? And so you can actually start exuding who your real self is through social media very easily. And some people put themselves out there more than others. I'm a business owner and I'm a solo entrepreneur, so I have no choice but to almost flaunt myself. I make YouTube videos, I do everything. I write blogs, I just go nuts because I'm doing everything I can to get noticed. You don't have to go to that extent, but you should be able to share a little bit more about yourself, and that is what social media is all about. So I wanted to set the stage there to say it's not just about talking shop and business all the time. It actually is about being social, and it's almost like high school all over again. You could be really popular again if you want to tap into social media, but don't be the bully. So normally what I do at this point is I actually tell everybody to socialize, but we're going to kind of do that after because I want to get this content in for the camera. So what I'll do, let's say after the first hour or so, is I'll actually have everybody get up and socialize and do a little bit of networking, and then we'll revisit kind of what you learned about people there and talk about how you can actually do that in a virtual world in social media. This is sort of the overview of the content that I want to talk about in this first slide deck. So social media myths, there's a lot of them. I've condensed it down to 5, although I could probably spend 2 hours talking about the myths. People that have just refused, like I've talked to so many people that just refused to get on Facebook or social media because they were just convinced it was a waste of time, or they convinced it was for kids. And then after we chatted for a while, I shared some examples. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Making time for social media interaction. We're all busy. Some of us have busy lives. Some of us have kids or multiple kids. Some of us have more than one job, different recreational activities we participate in, volunteer stuff, and the list goes on of family commitments. Who knows? I know everybody's got their own stuff they're dealing with. Life's busy. I honestly, who sleeps less than me? I sleep about 5 hours a night on average. Can anybody beat that? Wow. Does that make me a hero or just a loser? I don't know. We're busy, okay? We're busy. But making time for social media interaction is actually key, because if you want to use this platform to get recognized, to find opportunities, you need to be present in there at least some of the time. It doesn't mean you have to spend an hour a day or 4 hours a day. In fact, you could spend less. You don't even have to go on every day. It's just a matter of scheduling it at certain times, and I'll talk about that. What to avoid when participating in social networks? This one's really easy. There's a really easy answer to this, but I'll save it to keep everybody waiting in anticipation. Tools to help your social media activities. This is a section that originally I developed it for other business owners who were in my line of work, which is internet-based business owners. We spend our days on the computer, so there's a lot more that we will use than maybe yourselves will, because you're busy in a job doing stuff, whereas we're online all day. That's how we make our money. We're tapping away on our keys all day long. So there's certain tools that you may or may not want to use, but I'll let you know about them because you might be a techie. I know you said you're in IT. You might find this stuff interesting. Other people might as well. And then a couple of social media success stories. These come from my world, so they're entrepreneurial-based success stories, but in my opinion, very easily translatable to finding a job, finding an employer, connecting with other people, and so on. So the first myth of social media is that size matters. This is like it's one of those life myths, right? Size matters? Not always. But I know people will say this all the time. Well, I just joined LinkedIn. I've got nobody connected to me, so I don't really want to go look for a job or start putting my profile on there because it looks like I don't know anybody. It looks like I'm a recluse. Doesn't matter at all. Social media is about the connection. You could have one friend on LinkedIn or 2 people on Twitter, but if those 2 people are very powerful connections, powerful relationships, people that can actually introduce you to other people, that's all that matters. So this really comes down to networking. And so never worry that you're brand new and that it's not effective. The day you sign up for LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook and start putting it out there that you're in this as a professional and you've got some stuff to share and you're real, then that's the day you're going to start making some powerful connections and it will help. The other thing is that people believe it's too time consuming, so they don't even bother. And again, that's not the case. It's as time consuming as you want to allow it to be. Now, I will warn you that social media can be very addictive. As some of you have seen, if you sign up for Facebook, you can immediately start connecting with people you haven't talked to in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And that can be, A, weird, but B, that can be really addicting because it's like, wow, I haven't talked to this person since high school. What are they up to? And you get, and you can lose time in that. And you have to decide how much you want to invest in that. I think it's kind of cool. Like, when have, in the history of humankind, have we been able to revisit our past and bring back old connections that we may have lost just by accident? Like, I know, I'm 33, and I was in high school, 17 years ago. I've lost a lot of connections. I've reignited almost all of them through Facebook. Not like we see each other, but it's just kind of cool to be able to see, wow, like, look what this person's doing. It's really interesting to me. And I don't know how I got into that about time-consuming myth, but it's not time-consuming. No clients or no employers, okay? So either side of the coin, same thing here. People say, well, I'm not going to be able to, it's social media, it's just a bunch of people talking about what they had for lunch. I'm not going to be able to find anybody there. Wrong. It's about the connection again. I have found some of my most powerful business partners as an entrepreneur. I have found really good clients through social networks. And it was often through things that were not business related. I made a casual comment about going to my basketball game on Sunday night. And the other guy's like, I didn't know you played basketball. We got into talking and it turned into a business relationship. That's what's so cool about social media. You talk about the stuff you do in your life, but you make connections on other levels. And then it translates to new things. Social media is for kids. Easiest way to dispel this myth, fastest growing demographic on Facebook. Guess what it is? Over 40, and more specifically, who said it?
Seniors.
Seniors is another big one, the baby boomer generation. So yeah, over 40. That's the fastest growing demographic. It's been the fastest growing demographic on Facebook, I believe, for like 18 months now. So it's not slowing down. And it's becoming so easy, right? That people used to think, oh my God, computer, I can't get on there. It's really easy. Click on Internet Explorer, type in Facebook, click join. Everything's so simple to do. The I'm not a techie excuse doesn't work anymore because all this technology has advanced so far that really it's your responsibility to learn a few clicks and open up a whole new world of opportunity. It's not just for kids. It's not just for fun and games. The other thing is people think this is almost more of something that business owners are guilty of. Oh, I can just go to social media and just put my advertisements everywhere and then that'll solve my lack of client problem right now. Or I don't have a job, I'll just put my resume out on my profile and message it to as many potential employers as possible and solve it. Wrong. It's not a quick fix. It's again, back to the whole connection, relationship, networking. It's a long-term investment in who you know. And whether you like to admit it or hate to admit it, I'm kind of on the fence. Who you know is a big part of everything, right? You could be amazing at what you do, but if nobody knows about it, big deal. That's huge in my industry. A lot of the things that I do is I create a lot of digital content, downloadable courses, coaching programs. These things are really good. They're proven things that I know my clients have been through step by step, and they get results. They give me testimonials. But unless a lot of people know about that, unless you can showcase that, it doesn't matter. You see this with musicians all the time. Amazing singers, amazing guitar players, you name it. If nobody knows about them, who cares? And then some of the crappiest singers are on the stage at the Grammys, right? So it's not a quick fix. So we talked about some of the myths. Making time for social media interaction. This, again, it's going to depend on your level of commitment to it. I also think that most people that I talk to actually have no problem making the time once they see the benefit, not just for a business level, but from a personal connection level. It's a lot of fun. And if you can relate anything you do in your life to it being fun versus being painful, you'll make time for it, right? If you want to lose weight, you don't make time for the gym if you think your workout's going to hurt so bad and you're going to come home puking. But if you think of it as a fun thing, you get a bunch of people together and, let's go work out every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. It'll be a fun thing. We'll go for a coffee after. You look forward to it. So you can embrace it into your life a little bit more easily. So I'll talk about some of the things that will help you sort of bring it into your lifestyle. So the biggest thing is, if you want to make time for social media, first you have to recognize that it's valuable to your life. This goes for any human motivation. If something's valuable to you, you'll make time for it. Not, me being around my kids and helping to raise my kids is one of the most valuable things in my life. Oops, sorry about that, tap the mic. It's actually one of the main reasons that I decided to quit my corporate life and become an entrepreneur and work from home, because I wanted to be involved at such a deep level. So I recognize the value I changed my entire life. I gave up a belief system that said I had to, I need a job. It was scary, but the value of being around my kids and being there, like I've done everything with them. I took them to their first day of daycare. I take them to all their sports things. I live in Orangeville. I used to commute to the city every day. I would have missed out on, honestly, 90% of that stuff. And the thought of missing it drove me to change. So this goes back to anything. If you recognize the value that social media can have in improving your life and your job search, you will make time for it. So hopefully today I convince you of the value, and then following out of today, you can do things like this. Put it in your schedule and then do it over and over again. So normally here I also take a pause and get people to get into groups and chat. Again, I don't want to do that now. For the first hour, I want to try to cover the content. But I would like to get some of your input. So just shout it out. But to everybody in the room right now, what is the value of networking? Why is it so important to network and get out there and get your name known, shake hands, and meet other people? In my head, I can honestly think of about 5 reasons right now that I network every day. But I'm curious to hear what you guys say.
The more you put yourself out there, or the more that somebody knows where you are, or you're sharing yourself, the more there's a chance that somebody's going to take a look at you and say, oh, you kind of might be interested in being in our company. And you're able to boast yourself a little bit more, I think, when you're not face-to-face. So that might be a little easier for a lot of people online, too.
Yeah.
Because I know it's a lot easier to text than it is to talk, to get your point across or whatever. It's kind of a way to be more open without actually having that conflict.
Right, but it's just, and then abstracting that to just networking, period. You're still doing it, whether you and I are shaking hands here or meeting on LinkedIn. It can basically be the same thing. Yeah. But it comes back to what you said. It's the fact that you're putting yourself out there more and more and more. Every person you meet is a new world of opportunity. And I've seen people, again, I'm in the online marketing world. I've seen people whose mission it is to I want 1,000 friends on Facebook, or I want 10,000 followers on Twitter. Why? Like you're every time you just click follow, you're missing an opportunity to connect with a real person. That person's story could be life-changing, and people forget about that. And I know one guy. I found him through Twitter and actually my YouTube channel, because he's a comedian in LA, and we talked about similar things in our YouTube videos. So he followed me on Twitter. We started talking. This guy has like I don't know, 55 or 60 followers on Twitter, which is like nothing for entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs I know have thousands. But this guy's Twitter following, those 55 people he knows, have basically paved his career for him. I've talked to him about it. All those 55 people are people that get him gigs, that introduce him to other people, that actually, he has a focus group that they look at his comedy bits and tell him what he needs to improve on. If you imagine having 55 people who are all committed to your success, it's amazing. So it's not about the numbers, it's about the connection. What else though? What are some other good reasons why we should all network? And not just on social platforms, just in the real world.
Well, I know my brother and brother-in-law are both recruiters, so I know they use LinkedIn a lot
Mm-hmm.
to find their people.
That's a big...
So, short term as well, long term, you might even be in a job, you might be happy in the job.
Mm-hmm.
But you also might get that next person that maybe might offer you that better job. But you're not going to get that until you put yourself out there.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's a really good one. What else? There's a few here. I want to see if anybody can. You got another one? Go
It
ahead.
might even boost your confidence a little bit
That's
too,
a
because
good one.
you have other people that are going to be interested, even if someone just glances at you or something. It's interesting. Like with me looking for a job the last 2 weeks that I haven't done in a long time. New little bits and pieces, send a resume and meet a new person. It gives you a little bit of confidence, and you're putting yourself out there more and more every day, right? And the more confidence you have, in essence, the better job you're going to get.
How many people agree with that? A lot of people. Confidence is huge. It's hard. In my opinion, it's hard because you're putting yourself out there, AKA you're asking for feedback. You're creating a potential of getting negative feedback that you don't want to hear, right? But you're also creating a potential to get positive feedback that's going to make you feel better. And the negative feedback isn't necessarily bad. Those people are already thinking it, right? So you might as well know it so you can correct and adjust.
And they're the ones that you're catering to.
That's right.
What they say means something, hey, you didn't do that very well. I didn't shake my hand and say, hey, how's it going? Instead of, I'm here with the resume,
Yeah.
Just be outgoing.
Yeah. Later today, at around 4 o'clock, I'm launching a new course that I've created. I've been working on it for like a month. And it's a course created specifically for a target group of my coaching clients. But I was working on it for so long, and you get so emotionally invested in anything you do. It could be your role at your work. You get emotionally invested in your project. And it can be really scary to get that feedback. But I know how important it is. And so I sent my course ahead of time out to some people in my network, just asking for feedback. And I was really scared waiting for them to come back and tell me what they thought. Not partly because I spent a month on it, but partly just because at a root level, we all hate being criticized and judged. I don't know, I do. If you're different, I'd love to learn your secrets. But most of the feedback that came back was really positive. And normally before I release a new product or a new course, I'm more nervous than I am today because I got way more feedback than I'm used to. And most of the people said, you've done a really good job here. Like I compare your stuff to the last one I took or whatever, and they're saying this is really good stuff. So awesome to hear. And a couple people came back and they had positive and constructive stuff for me. But if I didn't know those constructive things, I couldn't have made the corrections. I actually took like 3 or 4 pieces of the advice that I had and changed my course before I released it. If I hadn't been willing to ask for that advice, I wouldn't have been able to change it. So that's, for me, I'm so glad you brought that up. For me, networking is so powerful for that. Yeah.
You can always make it better, no matter who says anything. There's always something you can do something to.
Yeah. What else? One more. Yeah.
It's an amazing learning tool. LinkedIn groups, they have user groups for a whole bunch of different technologies, and they'll discuss how to get the certifications, how to get the jobs, what you need to really know.
Yep. The birds of a feather kind of, connect with other people who are interested, passionate about a topic that you're interested in. I remember when I worked at IBM, they used to, they don't do it anymore, but they used to fly about 13,000 of us to Vegas for this massive conference to kick off our sales year. And one of the biggest parts of that conference was we would be there for 7 nights. It was very painful. We were there for 7 nights, and I remember one of the biggest things we did were these birds of a feather sessions. And these could be things that, some of it would deal with in-work stuff, like if we worked on a certain piece of software. I remember one of the things we did was, one of our tools was software testing. So if a new piece of software goes out to the market, there'd be a group of people responsible for testing it to make sure that it doesn't break when you try different things. So let's say a user does A, B, C, D, is it going to break? What if they do A, B, D, C? Does it break? So that's what we did, is a software testing community, and we literally got together for a dinner, all the people that did software testing, and connected. And it was a special connection because we shared that interest. But at the same time, there was other birds of a feather sessions that dealt with human interest stuff, or people that there was Cancer Society one, people that were affected by it or wanted to contribute or donate or raise money for it, and those people got together. It was still done in the context of the corporation, but there's a certain connection that happens there, and people identify with groups like that. So networking gives you an opportunity to find all these different groups that are out there that you maybe didn't even know existed, and they can be like support networks for you. There is one of the social media platforms I don't even talk about that's really big for me as an online entrepreneur is message boards and forums. Has anybody ever been to like a forum, a discussion board? Yeah, a few people. So you can look these up. You can literally look up any topic. So one example, I have a client who has a fishing lodge. You can go online and to Google and look for fishing lodge discussion or fishing discussions or things like that. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of people connected to each other in a discussion board on one website. And all you need to do is go sign up a user account. You can put a name or you can put a fake name, whatever you want to do, and go start reading the threads, reading what people are talking about, and adding your comments to it. And suddenly you knew nothing about this world, and now you're connected to this world. And then the real problem then becomes, how do you sort through all the information, because there's so much of it, right? But I'd rather create those opportunities to have those networks than to not know about them at all. I'd rather have the awareness that they exist and then choose my level of participation in them. Okay, so I think we all agree that networking is important. Confidence one was a great one. I'm glad you brought that up. So we see the value in networking at a high level. So why not do it on a daily level if we can, or at least on a regular level using digital opportunities? It's not every day we're going to get to come to a room like this and shake hands and hand out business cards or whatever it is we do. But we can certainly do it all the time through our phones and through our computers. So if you do it, then let's talk, or if you want to do that, we can talk about how to integrate it into your schedule. And I have some tools and I have some specific things I want to share with you in the rest of this presentation that will help you do that. But first, let's talk about what to avoid when participating in social networks. There's a lot. Again, this could be a 2-hour presentation because there's stuff that you want to avoid at a security level, right? You don't necessarily want to give away so much information about yourself. I know that was one of the things you said when you walked in was, I don't want everybody to know what I'm doing, right? I don't want everybody to know where I live, or I don't want people to see pictures of my kids. Okay, good to know. Don't post pictures of your kids. There's things you need to know to do. So I'll go over a high level, the things to avoid. We can't go through them all, but if you have questions in the second half, we can go through them. This is the easiest thing to remember. Online or offline, so offline meaning real world, rules are the same. You're not going to walk into this room and start handing your resume out to every person you see saying, I need a job. You're not going to do that. You're going to come in, you sit down, maybe introduce yourself, maybe say where you're from, start casual chat, and then build from there, right? It's like going on a date. You wine and dine. You build the relationship slowly. You don't dive into things. So that's the main thing. If you keep this in mind, you'll be fine. But for some reason, some people, and this is not just kids, this is people of all ages, they feel like, oh, well, now that I'm on social networks, I can behave crazy. I can do things that I wouldn't do in a real social environment, and it can actually really hurt you because your reputation follows you around, whether it's virtual, digital, or whether it's in the real world. In fact, it's probably more damaging if you do it here because the word spreads faster than if you act like a jerk in a room like this. If you act like a jerk online, people start sharing that. It's very easy to share content on social networks, which is powerful because if you have something good to share, it gets out faster. It's also powerful in a negative way if you put something really dumb out. Has anybody ever seen that there was like this viral picture or blog post of this lady who was complaining about her boss? Did anybody ever see that one? On Facebook, you saw that? I had a high level. She basically went onto Facebook and went on a rant, like 4 or 5 paragraphs about how much of a jerk her boss was. On and on and on, and he does this, he makes me do all these stupid, whatever, on and on. And then a few hours later, a reply comes back. I guess you forgot you friended me on Facebook, the boss. She lost her job. Hello? Would you have done that sitting in front of him? Would you have done that in the coffee room knowing that he could walk by? No, you wouldn't have. So you don't do it on social media. And so it's an easy rule to follow, right? But it can also be very easy to get wrapped up in the whole anonymity myth. You're not anonymous. People know who you are. Unless you've created a profile, John D or something then that's different. So these are just some general don'ts I tell people. It may seem obvious, but you would not be surprised. Every day I see this. As somebody I'm on social media most days. I don't spend a ton of time, really. For an online entrepreneur, I probably spend less than a lot of people. But I still see this. I see people sending me direct messages on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook asking me to look at their product. Like, really? Really? Like, you think I'm going to go buy your stuff just because you sent me a private message on one of my personal accounts? You don't even know if I want what you're selling. Horrible. So you don't hard sell your products, but you also don't hard sell your services to an employer. Spend all day talking about yourself. Isn't that bad when you go? Somebody just goes on and on. So yeah, last weekend Cheryl came over and stop, please. Interact, ask questions, answer questions. The easiest thing I find is if you want to be a hit at a party or at a social event, just ask a lot of questions. I remember one party, I didn't know anybody. It was one of my wife's groups of friends, and I went, and all I did the whole night was just ask people questions and take interest in what they did. And everybody's like, "Oh, your husband's amazing." I was like, "Sweet, that was easy. Just ask questions all night." Didn't say one thing about myself, and they loved me. But that's what people want, right? I talked about this already a little bit. Third point, it's not only about business all the time. I remember this used to drive me crazy in some of our IBM meetings. We spend, sometimes we'd start off early, start at 7 a.m., we'd work on a project till noon. Now it's lunchtime, time to just relax for a bit, right? We go to lunch and then everybody would keep talking about what we've been doing for the last 5 hours. And then one person would speak up and say, "Hey, guys, ladies, can we talk about something else?" And everybody thank you. And it's a relief. People agree that you need to mix it up. Your mind needs a shift. And so social media can be a really good outlet for making that shift. We need to decompress. I know I study a lot of productivity techniques and productivity ideas because, again, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of stuff I have to do way more than I used to do in the corporate world because I have more roles in my company. And some days I work 12, 15, 16 hours a day. I need to work a lot. But I find that if I work in focused blocks of concentrated effort, so if I spend 90 minutes thinking about nothing but this task I'm on right now, so let's say it's writing my next course or preparing a blog post or something like that, whatever I do in my job, I do that for 90 minutes max. No matter where I am, I stop and I go do something totally different. Have a snack, talk to somebody. It could even be more work, but something totally different, like a change of state. So again, same with social media. It's not about business all the time. You'll turn a lot of people off if that's all you talk about. So don't be afraid to be yourself. It doesn't mean you have to tell them your innermost fears. Share some stuff. I went to volleyball last night, or took the kids to their first day at gymnastics, and whatever. Share some cool stuff. Embarrassing or poking fun at people, that feels like it can be easy to do because it's virtual. Avoid that. Spam, I don't think anybody here is going to do that. Spam is basically when you just repeat stuff over and over again to people that may or may not care and likely not care. You guys get email messages like this, I'm sure, in your spam box or maybe your inbox every day. So annoying. Don't be that person. Don't ignore your profiles. This one actually hurt me a few times because I have so many different social profiles, but even on the big ones, I had my LinkedIn profile set up, and I had put, I put all my information down, and I connected with, I think, 30 people or something like that. It was when I was first getting started. And then I actually forgot about LinkedIn for, I'd say, a good 6 months, and it actually had I was now an entrepreneur, it had my employer on my profile still. So I was getting all these people contacting me or looking at my profile thinking I was still working at IBM. Meanwhile, here I was building a business and they knew nothing about it. So it doesn't help you at all if your profile is out of date. Somebody's going to come by and who knows how many potential clients I may have missed by not telling them that this is what I do now. And that doesn't take a lot of time. If you just put, I live by my calendar updates. When something beeps on my calendar, I go, oh, okay, I guess I got to do this now. So I put a little reminder once a month. Are your profiles up to date? It only takes you 5 or 6 minutes to just go check. Can I add something? Can I add a new recommendation? Or did my resume change or something? And just keep your profiles up to date. Even if you're only doing social media, a couple times a month, you can still do this and it can still serve you. And don't say anything that isn't public info. Again, seems like a no-brainer, seems like something pretty obvious. People forget, so just a reminder. So now that you know what not to do, think of all the things that you can be doing to grow your network. And again, I often will stop here and get people to kind of chat and share ideas. But these are just some examples that will get you started. So, what kind of people do I want to meet? Always thinking beyond business, beyond your job. I actually, there's been a few different projects in my business where I was chartering into unknown waters. I was trying to, one of the things I do in my business is, it's called affiliate marketing, where I basically get people, other marketing companies, to help spread the word about my product. And I had no idea how to do this. No idea. I could have bought a couple of books or taken some courses on it, but even then, I don't know, are those the right books for what I'm trying to do? The easiest thing is to start asking people. So I went into social media, to different social networks, and I started searching for keywords like affiliate marketers or affiliate tips. And you would not believe, same thing like your example of the groups. I found groups of people, I found communities, found message boards, all these people that actually spend their days and nights doing nothing but affiliate marketing. What a great group of people to tap into. And people are so welcoming in these places. You can go in as a brand new newbie or whatever, create a profile. It says it may show that you have 0 friends and 0 posts, and just introduce yourself. Say, hey, my name is Justin. Here's what I do. And I just stumbled upon the notion of affiliate marketing. I realized that this could be a big change in my business, but I have no idea what I'm doing. If anybody has any tips to help me get started, that'd be great. Very innocent, simple question. But most of the time, you're going to get so many people just eager to help for no other reason than it's fun for them. And that's what's so cool and so powerful. You can do the same thing. I just graduated from college with an accounting degree. I'm looking for work. Here are the things I do. Here are some of the things I'm interested in. Does anybody have any recommendations? Does anybody know of any seminars coming up that I could attend, or an event coming up that I could go to? You can find it. Just through some simple keywords, you can find these people and get the advice. The other thing is how you want to bring yourself into these networks. I always ask, how can I entertain and motivate people? If you think about any interaction you have with somebody new, there's a famous saying in the professional speaking circuit when I was doing professional speaking training, is that they never remember what you said, they just remember how you made them feel, right? I'm sure everybody's heard that before. So when you're out there networking and you're trying to find a job, or you're trying to showcase your talents and your abilities, they're not going to remember that you can spew off, pi to a million decimal levels or whatever. They're going to remember that you're a fun-loving person, that you're easygoing, that you're a hard worker, that you're committed, that you're passionate about this topic or that topic, that you're funny, that you're willing to make recommendations. Maybe you introduce them to somebody that changed their life. They're going to remember those kind of things. So ask how you can bring yourself into these networks and help other people, change other people's lives. You literally can. It's very simple to do just by reaching out and listening and engaging. So it doesn't have to be like a huge complex, so I'm going to entertain somebody by creating this funny video and making it go viral, or I'm going to put on an event so everybody has to see who I am. It can just be a matter of tweeting sending out an update to a funny comic you saw. If somebody's stressed out, they see your comic, changes their day. Helps. Little things that you can do. So we talked about that. That's an overview of what to avoid when participating in social networks, and some suggestions as to what you can do. If I had more time in a full day course, what I actually would normally do is we take a break and we get people to create like an online persona. So some people want to say, online I want to be a rock star. Online I want to be like the athlete. And you can create this fun little thing of like the persona you want to create online. And things that you may be uncomfortable doing in a personal setting, you can let yourself loose a little bit more on social media because there's less of a threat. It's just like you said, it's much easier to send a text than it is to talk to somebody, and it's much easier to talk to someone on the phone than it is in person. So the scale, like varying degrees of difficulty, but you can actually discover, it's a great personal development tool. You can really tap into newfound talents and just abilities that you haven't maybe explored before. How much time do we have there? 20 minutes, okay. So I'm going to go into some tools that are going to help your social media initiatives. I will caution you here that some of these things, I'm going to talk about Twitter, I'm going to talk about tools that you may or may not want to use, but I still want to talk about it because the tools themselves highlight the power of the actual social media, the social platform itself. So if I talk about something that's too techy for you, don't worry, and we're also going to have a chance to discuss and talk about questions. But I want to show you a tool called Tweetdeck. It's a Twitter application, and I really don't expect anybody to go and use this, although I recommend you try it if you want. But Tweetdeck is a really interesting tool that goes with Twitter and helps you connect with people. And at a high level, there are tools for all the social media platforms. There's tools that can help you get more out of Facebook. There's tools that can help you get more out of Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other ones as well. Some of these tools will actually make your life easier because you don't have to spend so much time. For example, there's very easy ways to update your Facebook status on your phone. That's a very easy thing to do if you learn how to do it. I'm going to show you some tools that do it. Tweetdeck is, first of all, actually, before I explain Tweetdeck, let me explain Twitter. How many people actually know what Twitter does? How many people need an explanation? Most people do. Very good. Okay, so we've got something to talk about. I like using Twitter as an example, even if you don't end up using it for your job search or for what it is you're here to learn today. It's a good example of what social media is about. Twitter is a place where anybody can go and create a profile, either an anonymous profile or a real profile using your real name. Totally open, there's no rules, there's no standards. The only thing is, when you create a Twitter profile, you can start sending tweets to this Twitter universe that anybody can actually see, depending on what they're searching for. And you can have people that actually follow you directly and listen to what you say, or you can have people that just search for things, certain keywords, and they'll see what you say based on something you mentioned. So I like to call it a global conversation, because that's really what's happening. It's a 24/7, 365 conversation. It's happening every millisecond of every day. It's actually kind of staggering when you think about the kind of connection that's happening here. This is never, 10 years ago, this didn't exist. Human connection has never been this tight. So it's actually very fascinating, but it also illustrates the power of social networking and how quickly connections can be made. If you wanted to, if you want to find somebody that's like my whole affiliate marketing example, if I wanted to find somebody that could help me with that 10 years ago, it'd probably take me a few days. Now I could do it in probably 15 minutes, maybe less, just once you have the tools and know how to do it on social networks. So Twitter is a global conversation where people talk about anything. And people talk about some really stupid stuff, obviously, what they had for lunch, or, what's his name, Ashton Kutcher. He has I think one of the biggest profiles on Twitter, and he mostly just puts silly videos up, but people like it, right? It's just how it works. But when this kind of thing happens, all these conversations are now being tracked and recorded. And they're all public, they're all searchable. And that means that you, as an individual person, who has a Twitter account, can now tap in to this massive conversation that, at a high level, if you're far enough away, you have no idea what's going on. It's just this whole bunch of people talking. If I logged into my Twitter account right now, I follow maybe 3,000 people, so that I have in Twitter, I can actually, right here, this column would be everybody that I'm following. That's what they're tweeting about at this moment. And my column literally goes like this. Like, you can't even read it. It just keeps going. So that's of no use to me. How am I going to possibly read that? But what that does tell me is that there's a lot of discussions happening right now. There's obviously stuff being said. And I'm sure some of it is important. Some of it's probably pretty interesting. Some of it's going to be silly too, obviously. But now that I know that's happening, I can strategically go tap into that discussion and pull out things that are going to be relevant to me. And that's where a tool like Tweetdeck, or some of the other tools I'll show you as well with different social networks, can help you. So I can create other columns in this Tweetdeck tool, and I can make these columns search for particular things. So for example, right here, the second one is a column that shows all the people who have sent me a personal Twitter message. It's called an @reply. So in Twitter, let's say your username is Justin134. Okay, somebody can put the @ symbol, right? Like you've seen an email address. @Justin134, I saw your blog video, it was funny. Okay? Or @Justin134, I saw you asking about affiliate marketing, read this article, link. Okay? That's really powerful, because now we can start talking to people that we've never ever met before. All they need to know how to do is use this one little tool, an @ symbol and our name that they've had to find somewhere, and send us information, just like we can do the same thing.
So anybody can see that?
Anybody can see it when it's an @reply. So @replies are publicly sent messages. You can also send private messages in Twitter as well. I'll talk about that in a second. But so most things you do in all social platforms are are public unless you specifically use the features to make it a private message. For example, in Facebook, you can write on someone's wall, which everybody can see. And if you haven't used Facebook, don't worry. But basically, you can find somebody on Facebook and send them a message. And if it's on their wall, everybody else can see it. But if it's a private message, nobody can see it except them. So it's almost like sending an email. But knowing the difference between the two is huge, right? I've seen people that meant to send a private message and it was on the wall, and sometimes it was personal information. It's like, go delete that quickly. So you need to know the difference between these things. However, you shouldn't be scared of it because, again, think about what I just told you here. That, like, this is extremely powerful. You never before have been able to tap into this kind of thing. So another one I have here, this actually is it's a poor example. It's not don't worry about what's on the screen. But in my real one, I have another column here, which is all my DMs, direct messages. So in Twitter, if I'm following somebody, which means I'll see their update every time I go into Twitter, they can actually send me private messages. If I'm not following them, they can't send me private messages. So that's sort of the big thing here, and that's done for a reason. Because as soon as you create a Twitter account, you don't want the rest of the world, which is going to be a lot of robotic spammers, just like you get in your email. You don't want those people sending you 1,000 Twitter direct messages, to click on some silly link that's going to take you somewhere. You don't want that, and Twitter prevents that from happening. So there's actually a lot of control here. You can only get direct messages from people that you have said, that person looks interesting, I'm going to follow them. How do you follow them? This is where a demo would be actually really good. But in Twitter, once you sign up for an account, you can start searching for people. You can search based on any keyword you want. I remember I had a client, and we were just talking about social media, but he was actually in the market for an SUV. He wanted to buy an SUV, but he wanted to get some input from people. And you can read consumer reports. But it's also kind of cool to, if your neighbor has the car you're looking at, it's probably more advisable to go walk over next door and ask him, hey, how was your experience with the Ford Escape or whatever? And you ask, and he can say, oh, it was great, or I've had some problems with the transmission, and they just tell you their experience. And then you're probably going to base your buying decision more on that chat than you are on a magazine, right? We trust people we know, trust people that we befriend. You can do this on social networks. So my client went to Twitter, and with all this stuff going on in the Twitter universe, he was able to extract just small pieces of that big conversation where anybody mentioned the word Ford Escape. And he could put all of those tweets, those messages, in their own organized column and start going through them and saying, okay, this guy, this is a blogger who promotes Fords. Okay, I don't want that. Here's a guy, here's somebody complaining about his Ford Escape, his 2012 Ford Escape. Let's see what he has to say. You can read his tweet. Maybe he actually wrote a blog post about it. You can read it. Or you can say, that person has something I want. I'm going to follow that person. And you can send them a message saying, you can send them an @ reply publicly saying, I'd be interested to hear your feedback about the 2012 Escape. Please accept my follow, right? That's a very casual approach. It's not threatening. You're just being inquisitive. That person, 9 times out of 10, unless they're really antisocial, but they're on social networks, so they're probably accepted, they'll probably follow you back. And they'll probably engage in a conversation. I've done this so many different times where somebody just mentioned something offhand on Twitter, but I had a search for that word, and I sent them a reply saying, what was your experience with this thing? They replied, and then they sent me a direct message saying, hey, if you want to know more information, here's my number. And I called that person like 15 minutes after I had the question. I was on the phone getting my answer. It's so cool. So I use that to help sell stuff as a business owner. If I have a product or a service that can solve a problem for somebody, and that person complaining about that problem is online complaining about it, and I know I can solve it, that's cool marketing. That's not me hammering over the head with an advertisement. That's me extending an offer to help them with a problem. People will buy, and just like employers will listen if you connect with them in that way. So you could use something like Twitter to search for keywords. Anything to do with your industry, anything to do with problems that you and your role, the job you have, solve, right? You said you're in biology. What are some keywords? Like, there's so many things you could search. I mean, this is something you don't have to.
Use the degree very much, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. But you see the idea. Like, you could probably sit down for a few minutes and just brainstorm what are some of the conversations that people in that world are having, and how can I tap into it? So I use this example more. not to really tell you to use Twitter, because again, I think I have a presentation for LinkedIn. I think that's going to be where you should spend your time. But this just shows you, this to me explains social media better than a lot of sort of demos of using a tool. It's all about all these conversations that are happening and how you choose to participate. And more importantly, how you can find the information that's relevant to you. At a high level, most people go, Twitter, that's too confusing, it's garbage, I can't get anything out of it. But then I just show them this and they go, okay, I get it. You know, there's a billion conversations, I only need to know about 4 of them. So let's find those 4 and get involved. You still have to be willing to have the conversation, you still have to be willing to put your name out there, you still have to be willing to ask questions. But most of us are willing to do that if we're driven enough, or if we're interested enough in finding that job or making that connection with somebody, we'll do it. So Tweetdeck is simply a tool that plugs into this world of Twitter and lets us use it a little bit more easily. I never go to my internet browser and type in twitter.com and use Twitter that way. I only use this tool because the way I see it in the browser is just too confusing for me. Whereas with LinkedIn, I always use the browser because it's not as busy of a network. It's more about sharing your profile at a high level than it is about having a constant conversation. The two of them tie together really well, though. I'll give you an example. Ignore this one. This is, I'll just say, if anybody is interested, if any techie people out there, if you want to try Twitter, start with Tweetdeck, but Tweetdeck doesn't run well on all computers. You need a fairly new computer to run it. So if that doesn't work, there's something called Hootsuite, which is you can run through your internet browser. And it lets you do the exact same thing. It lets you create a Twitter account and then plug into the world and search. Every column will return the conversations happening on a different topic that you pick. Another tool that not enough people use, but I love this tool, Google Alerts. Who's used this before? Anybody? Great, so one person has. Google Alerts is a fantastic piece of technology. This lets you basically have an automated tool running on it's almost like having an assistant there for you who's keeping an eye on all these things, everything happening online, but regarding a particular topic. So I have a Google Alert, for example, for my name. If this ever shows up in an index page in Google, it sends me an email saying somebody's mentioned your name. That's pretty good to know as an entrepreneur, because if it's a bad review of my products, I want to know. If it's a good review, I want to know. If it's a question, I want to know. Anything. So I want to know about that. But think about how this could apply in a job search. If you're tapped into your industry, if you know the latest breaking news, if you're keeping up to date on all the things happening, you could put keywords into Google Alerts and get them emailed to you once a day or in real time. If you're the person that's connected to email all the time like I am, in fact, probably too much, but this could be a really powerful thing. If there's a new story coming out that's very relevant to your job search, this is a great way of staying on top of it. Imagine you're going in for a job interview tomorrow and you get an alert the day before about some breaking topic and you're able to discuss it intelligently in that interview. That gives you a competitive advantage. And you can use this. Other ways I've seen people use this is just for research purposes. You want to learn, you're trying to break into a new career. You used to do this thing and got bored of it. I want to move into something totally new. How do I immerse myself in that so I cut through my learning curve? I remember that was the biggest thing for me when I started at IBM. I started as an intern. I had no confidence. I didn't know, I was out of university and everybody around me had all this experience. I had no confidence at all. But I spent my days in that training room setting up the computers and watching the people teach the course. I was immersed in it, and before a year was up, I was teaching the course as an intern. That just doesn't happen. You normally have to go through a lot of training to get qualified to do that. But because I was immersed in it, I was able to do it, and it actually advanced my career. You can immerse yourself in anything you want if you're driven to do so. It will give you those advantages you need, especially like if an employer is looking at 30 people for a job, and you have some extra knowledge, or you have stuff that you've been tapped into that shows you're really interested and curious and inquisitive about what they're hiring you to do. I'd much rather hire that person that's always looking to solve new problems than somebody who's passively just waiting to get hired. Because you can do that.
So now say they give you an alert, do you get in touch with the person that has given you the alert, or do you have an idea of who?
Well, no, so that's a good question. I may not have explained this. So this Google Alerts will literally, so let's actually take an example. Let's say somebody give me an industry that they're interested in right now, or let's say you're looking for a job in a particular line of work. Just yell something out.
Teva Canada is a pharmaceutical place in town.
Teva?
Canada?
Okay, so you could have a Google alert for Teva Canada. And anytime a news release or a press release comes out, anytime somebody blogs about it, anytime somebody mentions, actually there's another one here as well, oops. There's social mention and Google alerts. Think of these two things together. Anytime somebody mentions that company on a social network or on Google, or like anywhere that Google sees it, you can get a warning saying somebody's talking about Teva Canada. And so you go in and read the article. What does the article say? Is it just a financial statement, or is it something bigger? Is it like a breaking story?
It gives you the information that they just checked out.
Yes. So it's almost like, so you can use social mention and Google alerts to literally find out everything that's being said about a company, about an industry, about a topic, a problem, a news story. Maybe there's a big news story that impacts the business you're trying to get into. You can be informed of all those levels. And that, remember earlier I said, you join social networks and it's like information overload. You don't know where to even start. These are the kind of tools you use to start drilling into the things that are of most interest to you, of most importance to you. Right? You may not care about the financial statements of Teva. You may care about something else that deals with your line of work. Like maybe it's they released a product and there was problems. Or there was a problem with identifying their quality assurance process. You can read more about that and figure out why that happened. Be informed. Yes.
So that searches everything on the internet, or just the people who are doing
Google? Google Alert searches everything on the internet. So, for example, I have a number of different blogs. When I write a blog post and I press publish, that goes live on the internet. I can send it to anybody here. They could type in that particular URL and read my blog post. Well, usually within a matter, depending on the website, usually within a matter of hours, Google has now indexed that page in their database. For sites like CNN and big news wire companies and all that, it's instant because Google wants to know about this stuff right away. So as soon as anything like that breaks and it's published online anywhere, it will show up as a Google alert. So that's really good to know. And in fact, most people I talk to don't know about this, or they know about it, they just don't use it. So for me, this is one of the best tools to give yourself an edge, to get some extra information, be tapped in where other people might not be. And that's what it takes. Also, like what I was saying before, the whole overcoming the information overload. I showed you Tweetdeck as a tool because it's a tool that helps me filter out what's important to me and just get rid of everything else. And one of the things I'm doing right now is outsourcing my email. I have like 7 different email accounts and I have customer support all over the place. I'm streamlining all of that and I'm outsourcing it to somebody who can just watch it for me. Because I can't do my job if I'm thinking about email all day long. It's like anything. So use a tool like this to just funnel the things that are important to you, to your awareness, and everything else, you can ignore it.
And does it funnel it to your email?
You can set it up to do that, yep. You can use Google Alerts in a few different ways. The best way I suggest you do it is a daily update. Because if you have a lot of different alerts for different keywords, and you ask it to email you in real time, your inbox could get a lot of these. So you might want to say there's a setting in there, have Google Alerts email me every morning. So you can look at the previous day's stuff. And that's usually current enough. Unless you really need to be tapped into like this minute, if you're a reporter, I guess, then once a day or even once a week should be enough. The other thing you can do is, this is for people that if you're on a computer a lot, you can get something called an RSS reader. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, but you can have an RSS reader which basically just lets you feed in headlines of all the things that you're interested in into this list, and then you can pick and choose what articles you want to read. I've really simplified what RSS is, but let's not go there. Okay, social mention is basically Google Alerts for social. So here, if somebody publishes a news story on CNN about that pharmaceutical company, it would show up in a Google Alert. But let's say I send a Twitter message about the pharmaceutical company, just on my lonely little Twitter profile, you'd see it in social mention. So that's kind of neat because this is your way of usually getting bigger news by news agencies. This is your way of getting news about the same topic but from real people. I use this just for personal interest stories. So let's say something happens overseas or like a negative event happens. You'll get what CNN tells you and you get what BBC or all that tells you. But then you can actually do a social mention and see what the people that are actually there are saying. And it's usually a totally different story. So just from a personal interest or a human awareness thing, this is an interesting thing to be a part of. And obviously, all of this can tie back to a job search or positioning yourself in the market. So next thing I wanted to discuss here, this is actually a separate slide deck about LinkedIn. And just given some of the feedback and talking with Joyce ahead of time, I figured LinkedIn was the best network to talk about. We've already mentioned that. However, I would say that don't ignore Facebook and Twitter. Even if you just want to go explore those things, just to try them out. Take some time to do it. You might find it interesting. You might find it valuable. But that's okay. We're going to talk about LinkedIn. What I've put together here is basically just a series of tips that I've either used myself or I've seen and worked with other people, and they've got some pretty good results. And I've compacted it into 7 different lessons. So I call it the 7 insider tips. How's that for creativity? So the first thing is with LinkedIn, and actually I'll preface this whole slide deck with the fact that I could actually do this presentation in 2 pieces. 1, the high-level stuff I'm showing you here, and then 2 would be live demos, because it'd actually be really nice for me to show you it, but that really can take a lot of time, and you never know what your profile is going to do, and it's kind of not fun to share your own personal profile in a demo. So what I would say is watch this, take notes, ask questions before you go, and then just go back and try it when you have a chance. Maybe preferably within the first 24 hours, because that's when the information's fresh in your head. So when you go to LinkedIn, the first tip is to connect with everyone you know. And in order to do that, you have to have a LinkedIn profile. You have to go to LinkedIn and get started. So linkedin.com, and literally just follow the process for signing up. You can just follow their steps. It's very straightforward. And actually, before I talk about this, one of the steps in the setup allows you to put in an email address or more than one email address, and we'll have LinkedIn search your list of contacts for other people that you may be able to connect with, people who are already in LinkedIn. At the same time, if it finds that people in your contact list are not in LinkedIn, it gives you the option to invite them. So when you're first setting up a profile, you can actually create the opportunity for lots of LinkedIn connections just by using an email address. So anybody that uses Yahoo, Google, I think Simpatico works, Hotmail, all those different kind of email providers. Who's not on like Gmail or Yahoo or something like that? See, most of us are, right? So the biggest question I get is, well, how safe is that? I don't want to give LinkedIn my email address and have them look through all my contacts and pull all of it out. It's actually very safe. They use a certain technology. I'm not going to go into the details, but they use a technology that lets the LinkedIn software look into your email contact list without actually compromising any information. You actually have to put your email address and your password so that this tool can log in and get it, but that information is encrypted. The LinkedIn corporation never sees it. The software doesn't see it because it encrypts it, so it literally just builds a communication that's totally safe. So a lot of people don't do that step out of fear, but you're safe to do it. You're totally safe to do it. In fact, it will help you. I remember when I first did it, I went from no contacts to like 40. I was like, oh, great, I've got 40 contacts on LinkedIn. I just got started. That was kind of cool. So that's the first, set up a profile and then do that step, and it'll get you started. Don't be afraid to also do the other step, which is inviting people that aren't on LinkedIn to join you. Because most people just say, well, it's the 3rd time I've heard about LinkedIn. I'm actually going to take action this time. So it's a good way of getting, and you can be sort of that leader, that person seen as the networker, and they'll look to you for advice, which is always fun. So in your when you set up LinkedIn, you're going to see you have basically a profile, and you can list things like what you currently do, and you can even put things like currently looking for work or currently employed at this company, what school you went to. There's a section for recommendations, which you mentioned. I've only got 2. Actually, a lot of people suggest that you go out and find people to give you recommendations. This is something I need to improve on. I have a lot of companies that I've spoken to, or people have hired me as a coach, that have given me testimonials, but they've given it to me just in an email, or they've written a letter, or they posted it on my blog publicly. It's very easy. That person obviously appreciates the work I've done. It's very easy for me to contact them and say, hey, do you mind taking what you wrote here and just put it on my LinkedIn recommendation? Most people are happy to do it. If you've done a good job, they're happy to help out. So that's something to keep in mind. When you first get started on LinkedIn, if you have people that can recommend you, a former employer that was happy with your work, just ask them to write something nice about you there, and everybody, that's totally public, so everybody can see that. It's just kind of a nice thing to have, especially if you're looking for work right now. And then you can have websites. This is another presentation I actually do where I talk to anybody, whether you're a business owner or somebody looking for work or an employee at a company right now. You can actually have your own website just by using a blog. It never hurts to create your own personal blog where you write about things. I mean, you have to create the time to do this. Not everybody's going to do it. But if you're interested in this kind of thing and you see the value, you could very easily create a free blog that you post on your LinkedIn profile, and maybe you just update it once a week with you don't even have to do a lot of work. It could just be, these are the 5 articles that I read this week that I found the most impactful to my job. And you could literally blog about it. It's just something that shows that you go above and beyond, that you're interested, you're inquisitive about your profession. So that's kind of neat, and your profile actually goes a lot deeper than that as well, and I'll show you some of those examples. But just make sure that this stays up to date. The one thing I don't like is, you see right here, it says Kitchener for me. When I first signed up for LinkedIn, I lived in Kitchener, and my address changed to Orangeville, but for some reason it groups, because of I don't know what it is, it groups me into that region. So if somebody figures out how to make this more localized, like it might group people from Stouffville into, I don't know, like Richmond Hill. What's the closest bigger city? I don't know. Is it Richmond Hill? Markham. So I'd be curious. Does it actually say Stouffville, or does it group you in? If anybody wants to let me know, that'd be good. And then this is the key thing here. Joyce and I were just talking about this on the break. When you create your profile, now what you've basically done is LinkedIn's given you the permission to start searching their network, to finding things out about the LinkedIn community. And right now, I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe there are over 100 million people on LinkedIn now. That's massive. That's bigger than a lot of countries. So the potential for connection, not just locally, but globally, but even locally, which is kind of cool. It's like you could use something like LinkedIn to find people who live in your own neighborhood that you wouldn't necessarily know where to find any other way. This could be the only way you necessarily find a lot of the people. And you can search your connections, but you can also search people that you're not connected to through keywords. This is just an example here. This is showing how I could go through all my different connections and search based on different things, like tags. You can have a tag that just states something about what you do or about your profession. So for me, I could put, entrepreneur. That's one tag I could have. I can list a whole bunch of different tags. It's unlimited. Can search people based on what companies they work for. I know when I go into my profile, obviously I have a lot of former connections from IBM. It's a huge company. So I can filter out all of my connections and look at, here's all the people that are still at IBM. Maybe I want to do some work there, or get put my name in the ring for a consulting gig. I'd like to know who's there, and maybe who can introduce me to somebody who's hiring for that. Locations. This is a good one. Let's say you're flying. I'm doing a talk in Vancouver. I've got to do a presentation or training in Vancouver. Who of my connections actually lives there? I can hit them up, say, hey, I'm coming to town, and we've only ever met on LinkedIn. Want to go for a coffee? And you can obviously take it way beyond that, but break it down by locations. Industries, recent activity is a big one. So recent activity, anytime you make any change to your LinkedIn profile, it logs it as recent activity. And that's kind of cool, because anybody who you are connected to, and vice versa, you will see in your LinkedIn homepage, you'll see a stream of recent activity. So let's say you go to check your LinkedIn profile because you want to add, you've got a new version of your resume and you want to add it to your profile. So you're in there and you start poking around. Okay, I'm going to update a couple of things. Maybe I'll give a recommendation to a former colleague of mine. And oh, look at all this recent activity. You're going to look naturally at the person that's at the top. And then you'll go down and you'll see literally a feed, almost like when you go to a news website. The most current stuff's at the top and the least current goes down. So every time you make a change, your change shows up, just like in Facebook or any other thing, at the top of other people's profiles when they're logged in. And that's actually really interesting, because if you're putting yourself out there and talking about a topic that you're trying to get involved in and trying to get recognized for, and you're talking about it a lot, people will see, it's like branding in the corporate world. If you see somebody's logo over and over again, you're more likely to recognize it and maybe trust to buy it. It's just like you. If people are going to LinkedIn and they're constantly seeing your profile talking about this topic, you obviously know the topic, you're interested in it, that gives you a better chance of standing out from the crowd. So it's literally like personal advertising. So connecting with everyone you know, and then using these tools to make sure your name gets out there. Integrating your Twitter feed. So this one actually might be jumping a little ahead. I'm actually, if you just bear with me for a second. I'm going to skip to something. I'm going to go back to number 2 after, go to a little bit of a different order. You can display your portfolio using a piece of software called Behance. So once you get into LinkedIn, after you do that first initial step, which I recommended, which is creating your profile, inviting people via email, and making connections, the next thing you could do is start looking around at all the other different options. And just before I explain this, the one thing I didn't mention is that, let me go back for a second, because this was an important point that Joyce and I talked about and I forgot to mention. Once you've created your profile and you've connected with people, you can actually you can go beyond your connections and you can search all of LinkedIn for certain keywords, for certain interest groups, for anything. And you can find people that are in your industry or that are related to what you do, or could be recruiters or employers in companies that you're interested in maybe getting involved with. And you can connect with those people on LinkedIn literally by just inviting them to be a connection. So you can search for people and you can get a list. And another thing you can do is once you've connected with people, you can look at their connections. So if I get a diagram here. So let's say you join LinkedIn and your profile is here and you build 3 connections. So it could be Jim, Sally, Bob. These are people and they all work for different companies. Well, Bob's got 4 connections and she's got maybe 20. You can actually look at that person's connections and start seeing the people they're connected to. And if these people are connected to you, you likely have something in common. And if they're connected to him or her, then there's a good chance you have something in common with them as well. And you can literally go to that person and say, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. It could be something as simple as, I see you're friends with Jim. I thought it'd be nice to connect. Or you could take a little bit more of a bold approach and say, hey, I see you work in the manufacturing industry. I'm looking for work right now. I just thought I'd connect, see what's out there, see what people are saying. And if you invite people to connect with you, to become your friend, so to speak, on these networks, most of the time they're going to accept. Who doesn't want more friends and more connections? We all sort of crave this, I believe. Most people do anyway. So if you approach people very friendly and casually without being too pushy, they'll say, sure, let's be friends on LinkedIn, and they'll accept your request, and now they get added to your block of people that you're connected to. And this keeps going. So there's another level of connection here, right? So this person has their own connections. So this is sort of like, this person would be your second line of connection, this person would be your third line of connection. And you can actually see all these different people and connect to them and get to know them. That's at a high level what happens on LinkedIn. So you can search your friends' contacts to find interesting stuff, but you can also just search, you can search the LinkedIn community for people as well. So you can search based on job title, as an example. I want to meet somebody who does this. And it could be in your first line, it could be in your second line, it could just be in the whole LinkedIn stratosphere, and it'll just bring back a list of people. Here's everybody who is a success coach. Boom, 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 boom. And I've done this one day. Like, I just wanted to find people who did coaching. And I just started connecting with them. Just like, hey, I'm a coach. Like, nothing formal. Just thought we should connect. Maybe we can share ideas. Every single one of them accepted. They all do. So you could do the exact same thing. And that to me is pretty fun. And I know, like, I've got, 200, I think I'm over 250 connections now. That's quite a bit for LinkedIn. But anytime somebody adds me, it's kind of exciting. It's like, yeah, somebody wants to connect with me. That's kind of fun. So nobody's going to get insulted by you reaching out and taking interest in them. It's kind of it's a nice feeling. So feel free to do it. Do it more often.